Monday. Welcome back to the Conference Talk Show. I'm Eliz Green.
And I'm Tom Singer. And Eliz and I started this program about a year and a half ago because we saw in the midst of everything that was going on with COVID that there was a lot of confusion, a lot of fear, and just a lot of angst in the meetings business. And now we have interviewed, 100 plus people about the changes that are happening in the meetings world. And we thought this summer, we were getting out of COVID. And then the Delta variant came swinging us back in, Eliz.
Yeah, I know. So we scheduled this particular interview a while back before anybody had heard really about the Delta variant. I think we were pretty brilliant to get these three women back on the program. They are the creators of the Pandemic Compliance Advisor certification. They are all certified meeting professionals. We have three amazing women, Heather C. Schultz, Marianne Ubanovich, and Shannon Majewski. Welcome back to the Conference Talk Show.
Glad to have you all back.
Thank you.
All right. So we thought, May, June, we're like, hey, we're all going to go back in person. This is going to be great. Like maybe not even have masks. That'll be awesome. We all want to be together. And now there's a little stepping back. What are you ladies seeing out there?
Who wants to go first? You can go first. You've been on site.
Oh, yeah. So I've been on site. I've at least had a chance to travel. What I'm seeing a lot of and what we do at drug information associations, we'll be doing vaccine requirements. So we're trying to get back to face-to-face. We want to bring our people together. Our exhibitors want our people to come together. They want to meet people. And they're a key stakeholder for us. So we want to make sure that we're able to do this in a wise way going forward. Yeah. So right now we're virtual through 21, but come 22, what's that look like? We have meetings for 50 people up to 7,000. So we're looking at it as a kind of a stepped program. We don't believe in one size fits all. The way I'm going to handle a 5,000, 7,000 person meeting is a lot different than I'll handle a 50 person meeting from a hybrid point of view. Not from a vaccine point of view, but how am I doing it technology-wise, or how are we going to do the hybrid side of it? That's what I'm seeing right now, at least in our industry, and I'm seeing a lot of organizations coming out with a vaccine requirement because they too want to get back face-to-face. A lot of associations can't do it without that exhibit sponsor revenue. That just doesn't. It's just, there's no ROI for exhibitors in the virtual space, or it's really hard to get the ROI for exhibitors in a virtual space. So we've got to start working around that and bring them back.
So what are you seeing both with your organization and others when they're looking at vaccine requirements? What are you seeing as far as both the rules around that and the compliance from the people who are attending?
Yeah, I just actually participated in a conversation from an association on Friday that just put it in place. We know HIMSS is taking place, I think this week in Las Vegas, and it's vaccine required. I attended PCMA's EduCon. It was vaccine required. So I got a chance to experience what the process was for an attendee. But right now for us, we're putting it in place as well. Some organizations are going through the hiring the vendor and having, actually showing your card and using that kind of backup to prove that you are, vaccine or have received the vaccine. Others are doing it on the honor system. We'll probably go through the proof side of it just to make sure that we don't have any issues or, everybody is compliant. I've also seen the organization that I heard from on Friday was very strict in it. Like they do not want there to be any exceptions to the rules. They don't want there to be any bending because they want to have a safe event. It's really important for them to get back face to face. They actually heard from some of their attendees or potential attendees, like, I'll come now because this is a vaccine required event. Like I feel safe coming to your event now. So there are going to be people that are not happy with that. But that's also, it's the choice of the association to put this, and it's the choice of some people not to get the vaccine. So
Right.
you're fighting two different choices here. And really, when it comes down to liability and what your own organization wants, that's what we have to follow, or as planners need to follow. So yeah, I've seen, they were strict on everything. And I'm like, I need to model this for my association, just because what they're putting in place it makes sense. It doesn't not make sense. And there was complete thought behind it, legal blessing on it. How does this pertain to, where's ADA come into play? And they work through all of that. I get it from a health and disability point of view, but from a religious point of view, that's a choice as well. So they have to work through some of that. It really doesn't fall under ADA, which was kind of a learning process for me there, depending on what the religious position was. So a lot of education's coming out for our industry right now, a lot of new info. This, again, uncharted territory of having to, require this. This is something that, as a planner, I wasn't expecting to ever have to, think about vaccines for my attendees. I just wanted them to sneeze in the crook of their elbow.
Right. And maybe elbow bump instead of, handshake.
Exactly.
And,
And what we're trying to navigate at this point, or at least what's on our horizon, is I work in healthcare, and all employees, all providers, and all trainees have to be vaccinated. So we're waiting to hear for the events that we plan off site, that we invite the public. What does that translate to? I don't know yet. And that may change. I mean, we just only recently heard that vaccines would be mandated for everybody on campus. So right, there's going to be some learning. And yes, there are going to be, in our case, there will be some exceptions to that would be religious and as well as health conditions. But how they're completely working around that, I don't entirely know. I was listening to an interview with the teachers union today, and they were saying that those people that have religious reasons that they can't get the vaccine, or health reasons that they will have to go through testing and masking protocols. I also think that it's going to be something to consider, for an ADA accommodation, for example, or religious for that matter, that you really do consider that virtual or hybrid component going forward.
Yeah, making that an option as well. Marianne, what are you seeing?
We're doing a lot of hybrids at this point. We are looking at programs for the fall, determining if they're viable or not, or if we need to move them completely to virtual, knowing that the Delta variants out there. I was speaking recently with someone in the UK, and they're on the end of it coming out. So, they're relaxing everything again, but they were a little bit tighter on the restrictions. So there's still the hope, but, we don't want to give up hope. There is hope that we are going to make it through this. I think all of us just need to learn what's the best way to navigate, manage it for all of us.
Right.
What makes the most sense, and what might make sense for Shannon's organization and her clientele is not the same as Heather's, or is not the same as mine. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that all gets back to the thing about being acceptance and understanding of each other, and not judging or getting angry at everybody's decisions. Because we're all taking the time to work through this, or to talk to each other about it, and opening those conversations. So, you're not privy all the time to seeing what else is going on. So, and I did do a site inspection last week, and I was in New York. And one of the things that I've shared with people is, I would say every 3 to 4 blocks, there was a mobile COVID testing station.
Really?
On the streets of New York. It was a van, much like you would see a variation of an ambulance with a pop-up tent in front of it, and people were just walking up and getting COVID tested. Somebody said, "Are they getting vaccine?" They said, "No, they're just doing the testing."
Wow.
That's really interesting. I wonder if that, if this continues much longer, if that's going to become something that we see all over the country, and if that's something we see near the check-in table at events.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I had recently had to go find on my way to a client. I was speaking the next morning. I found out that I had been exposed to somebody who was positive. Had to go find a COVID test because I didn't feel good about. I mean, technically, as the public health nurse said, I don't have to quarantine, but I didn't feel comfortable going to that client knowing that I had been exposed. So, yeah, the access to tests is going to be really interesting. I like where that's headed, I guess. That gives me a little more confidence. So tell us about the Pandemic Compliance Advisor program that you put together. And is that something that is helpful now as we're navigating this new sort of sea? Who would like to take that one?
I'm going to start a little bit and then pass it
Okay.
off. I'm going to say it's completely relevant to everything we do. We look at multi-tiered and multi-layers and facets as part of our discussion points. So we look at it from the start of educating everyone from the moment that you start looking at RFPs to, as Shannon had said, laying the groundwork and figuring out all the angles. So actually, our jobs are getting more complicated because not only are you sourcing, but you're figuring out why and what you can do and how you might be able to change things. And if you don't have that educational background to start with or that knowledge to start with, you're not going to be able to do the pull through. And that's what we're looking at doing. We have to pull it through everything we do. So, and be looking at all these facets. No longer is it, okay, we're cookie cutter. We're just going ahead and saying, we're going to this hotel and we're doing this, and this is our food and beverage. But there's everything involved along the way. And there's multi-facets to everything. And it's always changing.
Well, I think part of the course, what we're hoping to convey in the course is what to anticipate, not necessarily how to anticipate it, but what to anticipate. So when I did a site visit last week, and the first thing that I did when I walked in is, can this space be expanded if I need to space everybody, and what type of AV setup do they have in case we were going to do a live broadcast as a backup, and then we condense the space into a smaller space. So these are just, as planners, we always make a plan A, B, and C, but this has just put us on steroids. We have to rethink everything from the very beginning.
Right.
So I have a question about the compliance, about the certification, and that is, if we had beaten COVID, if this curve had gone down over the summer and we were able to fully open up in September and October, is this a certification that planners still want to go forth and get because of whatever the future could hold? Hopefully never a giant pandemic, but is this something that if people think, we're waning, should they still go get this compliance certification?
I want to jump in, but I see Heather smirk, so I know she wants to take. But I do want to clarify just one thing, and that is, it's a certificate versus certification. So you don't have to, you're not obligated to retake it, but we do give people access to the continually updated materials. So we are updating constantly. As a matter of fact, probably Marianne and Heather get a little sick of me because I am an information junkie and I'm always pinging them or emailing with whatever I've found. And I'm going to hand it off to Heather because I know she wants to talk about this.
This is my favorite topic. I answer it in every class, I think. And I think I probably mentioned it the last time was, just because COVID goes away doesn't mean health and safety go away either. Like, we're not out of flu. Flu's going to be around. COVID's always going to be here at this point. It's just going to turn into a different vaccine that we're getting every year. Common cold. I bring it up, 2019, we had the measles outbreak in the Pacific Northwest. So just because COVID's not here, and that's why we didn't call it the COVID Compliance Advisor course, we called it Pandemic, to kind of cover as a health certificate of things you can learn and things you can take and still put into place as you go back to healthy events if we are through the COVID window. Like, I'm not going to be setting 3 per 6 in a room ever again. Or if I can avoid ganging my chairs together, I'm going to avoid ganging my chairs together. A, nobody wants to sit that close to one another anymore. B, it's like, how are we thinking of how we do things differently now? It's how many people touch the pour on the coffee pot? Like, okay, there's got to be other ways to think about how we do touch points in our meetings. So I think taking this course isn't just giving you ways to get through COVID and through this pandemic, but also giving you tools as you go back to healthy events, even outside, and as you have winter events or the spring colds or things like that, or you're going from, hot outsides to cold insides and people get the sniffles and things like that. Right. And I think our attendees are going to not be as, I think they're going to be more sensitive to people that do have colds around them. I mean, I know when I sit on a plane, it's like, you don't want to sit beside somebody that's, coughing and sneezing. So I think that, people are going to be a lot more sensitive in a meetings environment too, of like, ooh, that person's, I don't know if I want to be near that person. So I think that those are things we need to keep in mind as we go back, not just with COVID disappearing, but we still are going to have health issues that as planners we should be thinking about.
And if I may jump in on one more thing to say that what we've been reading is that, like the flu, this is going to, it may not be a pandemic, but it will be endemic. It probably won't go away. So we'll be dealing with new variants, and hopefully we'll have at least the management of it under control.
Well, the other thing is that we're also talking about updating communications. As planners, we've always been communicators, but we're talking about updating plans, keeping your plans updated because things are changing, and they change so more frequently now, as we're seeing with the pandemic and COVID, that, what we were doing 6 months ago, 9 months ago is a little bit different than what we're doing today. So if you're not updating your plans constantly and monitoring that and making sure that your attendees know what you're doing and how you're changing things, is going to negatively impact your meeting. And the more that you are communicating now and looking at different avenues for communication, and as we know, giving it to them again and again and again, because not everybody reads it, it's going to better your programs.
There's two things that were instituted in events because of what's happened over the last 18 months that I'm like, I kind of like that. The first one is identifying how comfortable you are having physical contact with other people. Like, there are some of us who are like, hi, I will wave to you from 6 feet away. And that's actually kind of how I feel all the time. And there are some people who are like, come here, I don't know you, but let me give you a hug. And then there's some of us in the middle who are like, I would like to choose who I have physical contact with and what it is. Because some organizations are very, very huggy. And if you're not a hugger, that can be very uncomfortable. So I like that. I also like if you're coughing, sneezing, and have a fever, maybe don't come here. It's not just COVID.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah, I think a couple of things have come out of this too. It's like, you should not be a sickness warrior and show up if you're sick. And I think that was a cultural tendency for all of us. And that we've had to we've been forced to rethink that. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. I was thinking so much about that fact that, we show up to work sick. If I think of the other point I was going to make, I'll let you know.
Perfect.
But I think too, one thing that's also come out of it is duty of care. Like the whole duty of care conversation is back on the forefront. And I feel like as planners, before all this happened, like your health and crisis management plans, you ask a group of planners, it's hit or miss of who had one and who didn't have one and what were they used for. So I think now you're back on that duty of care and putting those policies and really looking at your code of conduct, not just to have a code of conduct because I got to have one, but you actually want to have the right stuff in there because you're looking at it differently. And I think that this kind of level set some of that wasn't happening in our industry.
Well, I
So
think it really did shine a light on the fact that a lot of people don't have a risk management plan. They don't have
Right.
things written down. They don't have a crisis response plan even drafted. So I think,
Right.
nobody knew how to deal with this without, well, you kind of had to do it as you were enduring it.
So what are you all seeing? We read a lot and we hear a lot of conflicting things in the news around, oh my gosh, everybody loves virtual. People don't want to go back to face. And then we hear people going, oh my God, I have Zoom fatigue. I never want to be on another virtual call as long as I live. What are you hearing from other planners and from attendees?
I can tell you what I've read from statistics, and that is that people do have virtual fatigue, but after coming out of this, they are expecting to be able to have access to a virtual component. So even if they prefer, by and large, to attend in person, at least at some point, in those instances where they like to attend or want the material and can't, they expect to be able to have access to it, where that might not have been the case before.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I'm seeing a few things. Number one, a lot of my planner friends who have been in the industry for many years, this is not the way we want to end careers. We don't want to be in a virtual world for the rest of our lives. From a sponsor perspective, or someone who's coming in and supporting your programs and doing things, it's difficult for them at times because they may have restrictions on material being enduring. So I have a few sponsors and a few people that say, I can have information up until the end of the program. I can have information up only for a week after the program. Or I can have the information up for 6 months, or there's no restrictions at all. So again, the information's there. It's just, what's the time frame that it's available to everyone? So back to Shannon's point about the attendee experience, thinking that they should have everything, it's not always viable because the people that are providing the information can't uplive or hold up to those expectations because of their own internal regulations. Yeah. So sometimes, depending on what you're in, and again, all three of us work in a varied form of health services or life sciences, if you wish to call it. So, we're all factoring that into our programs. So in other industries, it could be really different. But for us, there's always some sort of restrictions.
Yeah. And I think too, on our side is when I attended PCMA, it was interesting. They were calling it social fatigue for the people that were in person, because you've not been amongst people and had all these conversations that are happening around you, and who do you focus on? And I thought that was interesting, a new term besides the Zoom fatigue. So they were calling it social fatigue. But from our side at DIA, we surveyed our attendees probably back in October of last year, asking what are your plans for 2021, when we were trying to decide if our annual meeting would be virtual or in person. And I'd say a third, and a third came back to, see you there, I want virtual, I'm not sure yet. And now, right after our annual meeting this year, which was end of June, early July, we asked the same questions again. Will we see you in Chicago? And it changed. So 56% said in person. So the in person went up from a third to 56%. The virtual went down from a third to 14%. So I was like, okay, this is good. We're going in the right direction here. And then the hybrid, or the unsure, I should say, the unsure stayed at 30%. So it almost stayed flat, because they're the organizations that don't know yet what they're going to be able to do or what they're comfortable with. So it's just nice to see some of the trending starting to change a little bit, and people wanting to get back to face-to-face.
That's all really good information, Tom.
It is good information, and the stuff that they have done by providing this certificate has really helped so many people in the meetings industry.
I agree with you.
I'm going to share one of the things that makes the three of us the proudest of what we do.
Yeah.
Is the day that Shannon texted us and was on Indeed.com and saw that there were actual job postings for pandemic compliance advisors.
Nice.
That's
About
fantastic.
300 actually. We
If
created
that's not
jobs.
if that's not an enduring legacy, we don't know what is. So
That's perfect.
That's-
And Tom,
That's a great segue, isn't it,
it's
Eliz?
a great segue to announce that the Conference Talk Show is awarding to the three of you the Conference Hero Award. Yay!
Oh, thank you so much.
So
This is something Eliz and I created because we've had the honor to talk to so many people who have gone above and beyond the call of duty for all of us who work in and around the meetings industry. So we created this award to honor people just like you who've made a difference during this crazy last year and a half.
So one of the reasons I told you to stick
I
around
might
is you will be receiving the coveted Conference Hero coffee mug
Aw.
because we all need caffeine these days. But you know what you have done, and you know the point that you made about creating jobs is brilliant. This was a hard period of time for the meetings industry, and you know I watched people, you know, closing down their businesses and watching their calendars, just like Tom and I watched our calendar disappear, watching, you know, their calendars disappear. So the ability to have made a difference in your profession is exactly the reason and exactly the sort of people we want to award with this. So thank you for all that you've done for the meetings industry, and congratulations.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
So Tom, this was a very good idea you had.
Well, it's been fun. We've given
Heather, you have the dates.
Wait, what?
Our dates. We have a course coming up in September.
Excellent.
What are the
September
dates for that?
17th. Friday, September 17th at 1 p.m. Eastern.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
And
people can find out information about that. Where do they go?
healtheducationservices.org.
Perfect.
I'm writing that down for the notes.
Any teasers? Did we want to give any teasers?
Yeah.
Go for it.
No, it's Heather. Heather, you give this. This is you.
Oh, the 2.0 course. So we talked about how health and safety still stays on the forefront, and at some point, because of Delta variant, we're pushing this back a little bit, but we are creating a meetings and events health and safety kind of a risk management course where it takes, again, there's so many great learnings out there with PCMA and MPI and, you know, MeetingsNet and a whole host of things that we want to package it together to create something that attendees can, you know, planners can create for a healthy attendee experience. So very much what we did for PCA, but taking out the COVID side of it and really focusing on general health versus the pandemic word, because I think that's going to get lost. People are like, I don't want the PCA. Like, it's over. Well, what do we? It's health is still not over. So,
so people don't want to see us anymore.
Yeah. So that's down the road a little ways. We're starting to work on our outline for that. But because pandemic and Delta variant still here, I think it just makes sense to stay on the course we're on, to, you know, make sure that we're getting this right information out, because meetings still need to happen through all of this.
You guys are so impressive. Thank you for joining us again and sharing that. I think you're just going to have to be on a regular rotation because things keep changing. We'll keep bringing you back. But thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tom, we're really
Yes.
smart for getting smart people to come and talk with us.
So it has been so much fun. I was telling someone about the conference talk show and how, you know, we've done this back since April of last year. And I said, it really has been, for me, it's been a great mental health exercise because we've been able to talk to so many people in our industry about different ways that they've been contributing. And I loved having these three on both times that we've had them on.
Yes.
Because this is really important. And as they said, once COVID gets filed away, however however that happens, there is still going to be health issues that are always going to be on the forefront when we bring people together in gatherings. So this was awesome.
Absolutely. It was. So if you want to find out where to find the Conference Talk Show, you can find us live on Facebook at conferencetalkshow.live. You can find all of the recordings on YouTube at conferencetalkshow.watch. Where else can they find us, Tom?
If they want to learn more about Eliz Green and me, or hiring us separately or together, they can find out more information at conferencetalkshow.com. And if you want to look at all of the winners who have been awarded the Conference Hero Award, you go to conferenceheroaward.com, and there will be information right there.
There will, and you could nominate your own conference hero. We are looking for people in the meetings industry, whether that's a vendor, a meeting professional, or even a speaker who has gone above and beyond to serve the meetings industry. Just like our heroes this time. Congratulations one more time. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll see everybody next Monday. Have a great week.
Bye-bye.